someone disrespected you. Maybe they did it in front of people. Maybe they did it quietly in a way only you would notice. Maybe they did it with words. Maybe with silence. Maybe with the kind of dismissal that doesn't require a single sentence because the look said everything. And in that moment, something rose inside you. Something old, something hot, something that said you do not get to do that to me. And then you had a choice. The choice that almost everyone gets wrong. Some people explode. They react immediately, loudly, with everything they feel right there in the moment in front of whoever is watching. And they feel momentarily powerful. And then they feel something else. Some people swallow it. They smile, they nod, they say nothing, and they carry that moment like a stone in the chest that gets heavier every single time it happens again. And some rare people do something else entirely. Something that looks like nothing in the moment. Something that the person who disrespected them doesn't even notice right away. But that by the time it lands has shifted the entire dynamic in a way that cannot be undone. Machiavelli called this the art of the correct response. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly what it is. You will know why most responses to disrespect make your situation worse. You will know what the disrespect is actually telling you about the person who delivered it. And you will know the precise, deliberate, and deeply powerful moves that Machiavelli would make in your place. Before we talk about what to do, we need to understand what disrespect actually is, not what it feels like, not the emotional impact of it, what it functionally is in the language of power. Machiavelli never wrote about disrespect as a personal insult. He wrote about it as a test. Every act of disrespect is fundamentally someone testing a boundary. They are asking a question, not with words, with action. The question is, what will you do when I treat you this way? And here is the critical part. They are not necessarily conscious of asking it. Most people who disrespect others are not sitting somewhere calculating a strategy. They are operating on instinct, on pattern, on what they have learned from every previous interaction about what this particular person will and won't tolerate. And that is the most important sentence in this entire video. What they have learned from every previous interaction about what you will and won't tolerate. Disrespect rarely arrives without history. There was a first time, a first small moment where a line was crossed and nothing happened. No consequence, no shift in dynamic, no signal that said that is not acceptable. And because nothing happened, the line moved. And the next time it moved a little further, and the time after that further still. Until the moment you are in right now, where the disrespect is so visible, so undeniable, that you can no longer pretend you didn't notice. Machiavelli understood this with a clarity that most people never reach. He wrote that men will take everything you allow them to take, not because they are evil, because that is what human beings do when there is no resistance. The absence of a boundary is an invitation, and the person who never sets one will spend their entire life wondering why no one respects them. There are two responses to disrespect that almost everyone reaches for, and both of them make the problem worse. The first is explosion, the immediate reactive, emotional, visible response. The anger that shows itself right there in the moment in front of whoever is watching. And I understand the appeal of this. It feels honest. It feels powerful. It feels like standing up for yourself. But here is what Machiavelli would tell you about that response. Reactive anger is the single clearest signal you can send that the attack landed. When you explode, you are telling the room, and the person who disrespected you, that what they did found something in you that could be moved. You have revealed your nerve. You have shown them exactly where to press the next time they want to destabilize you. And make no mistake, there will be a next time. Because you have just proven that the method works. The second wrong response is silence. Not the strategic silence we will talk about shortly, the fearful silence, the swallowed silence, the silence that comes from not knowing what to do or being too afraid of the consequence of speaking to do anything at all. This is the most dangerous response of all, because it does not protect you. It teaches the other person that you can be treated this way without consequence. And a lesson taught once becomes a pattern, and a pattern becomes a relationship, and a relationship built on that pattern is one where you will never be truly respected. So if explosion reveals your weakness and fearful silence teaches your tolerance, what is the correct response? The correct response is the one that does three things simultaneously. It signals that you noticed, it signals that you are not moved, and it shifts the power without making the shift visible. Machiavelli understood that power displayed loudly is power that needs to be proven. Real power does not need to announce itself. Think about the most powerful person you have ever been in a room with. Were they the loudest? Were they the most reactive? Were they the ones who rose to every challenge, every slight, every provocation? Or were they the ones who barely seemed to notice the provocations that made everyone else flinch? Who moved at their own pace, in their own direction, entirely unconcerned with the attempts of others to knock them off course? That is the energy Machiavelli was describing. And here is how it works in practice. When someone disrespects you, the Machiavellian response begins not with what you say, but with what you do with your body. You slow down. Not a dramatic slowdown. Not a performance of composure that signals you are trying to appear composed. A genuine slowing. The natural deceleration of a person who is not in a hurry to respond because they do not feel the urgency that the other person was trying to create. Then you look. Not a stare, not a glare, not an expression loaded with anger or hurt or any of the emotions that would tell them they landed the blow. A look of clear assessment, the look of a person who is simply taking note. And then you respond, or you don't. And that decision depends entirely on what the situation requires. Machiavelli gave us 3 specific moves for the moment of disrespect, not as rigid scripts, not as lines to memorize, as principles that you adapt to the situation in front of you. The first move is the named observation. This is for the moments where the disrespect is direct and public, and pretending you didn't notice would itself be read as weakness. You name what happened, calmly, without heat, without accusation. You simply hold a mirror up to what just occurred. Not, "How dare you?" Not, "You have no right." Not the language of someone who has been wounded. The language of someone who observed something interesting and chose to name it. Something like, "That was an interesting choice of words." And then nothing. No elaboration. No explanation of why you said it. No invitation for them to respond. Just the sentence hanging in the air like a question they now have to live with. Notice what just happened. You did not attack. You did not defend. You did not escalate. You simply placed a marker that said, "I saw what you did, and I am not going to pretend I didn't." The room receives that signal. Whether it is one person or 20. And the person who disrespected you now has to sit with the fact that it was witnessed, named, and met with something far more unsettling than anger. Composure. The second move is the strategic silence. This is for the moments where the disrespect is subtle, or where responding immediately would give the other person more power than not responding. You say nothing. But the nothing you say is not the nothing of fear. It is the nothing of a person who has already decided what this moment means and what they will do with it in their own time, on their own terms. The strategic silence is not inaction. It is delayed action, taken from a position of strength rather than immediate reaction taken from a position of emotion. The person who disrespected you is waiting for a response. They are watching for the flinch, for the sign that they landed something. When the sign doesn't come, when you simply continue moving at your own pace, entirely unbothered, it creates something in them far more powerful than your anger would have. Doubt. Did that land the way I thought it would? Did they not hear me? Do they not care? Or is something else happening here that I should be paying attention to? That doubt is your power. The third move is the consequence without announcement. This is the most powerful and the least understood. Most people who have been disrespected make the mistake of announcing their response. I am going to deal with this. You will regret that. Don't think I have forgotten. And every one of those statements is a warning given freely to someone who has already proven they do not respect you. The Machiavellian move is to decide what the consequence is and then deliver it without a word of warning. You withdraw access. You redirect energy. You reposition yourself so that the person who disrespected you finds that something has shifted without ever being told it was going to. And when they notice, when they finally feel the consequence of what they did, the most important thing you can do is not explain it. Let them figure out why. Because a consequence explained can be argued with. A consequence that simply exists cannot. Now I want to go deeper than the tactics, because if you only take away the moves, you have only taken away half of what Machiavelli taught. The deeper lesson is about what disrespect reveals about you, not about the person who delivered it, about you. When someone tests your boundary and finds nothing there, when they cross a line and discover that the line was never really enforced, that is not a reflection of their character. It is a reflection of the signals you have been sending. He wrote that the prince who is not respected has usually given people reason not to respect him, not through weakness of character, through inconsistency of standard. Think about the relationships in your life where you are most consistently respected. What is different about those relationships? In those relationships, the person who respects you has learned through experience that there are consequences for treating you poorly. Not dramatic consequences, not explosive consequences, but real ones. A cooler response the next time they overstepped. A door that quietly closed when they took too much. A shift in your energy toward them that told them something had changed. And because they learned that they behave differently, they operate inside the space that your standards defined. The people who disrespect you have learned something different. They have learned that there are no consequences, or that the consequences are emotional and loud and temporary. And temporary consequences teach nothing. They only teach people to wait.
This is the part that is hardest to hear. The person disrespecting you is not entirely the problem. The standard you have set or not set is the problem. And the good news, the genuinely powerful news, is that standards can be reset. Not by an announcement, not by a dramatic confrontation, but by the quiet, consistent, unwavering enforcement of a new line. One interaction at a time. There is one more thing Machiavelli would tell you about disrespect that almost nobody talks about. Not every disrespect deserves a response. Not every relationship deserves a reset.
The wise man chooses his battles with surgical precision, not because some battles don't matter, but because energy is finite. And every battle you choose to fight is energy taken from the things that actually move you forward. So before you decide how to respond, ask yourself one question. Is this person someone whose respect actually matters to where you are going? Because if the answer is no, then the Machiavellian response is not a move at all. It is a removal. Not dramatic, not announced, not performed for an audience. A quiet, deliberate, permanent withdrawal of your time, your attention, your energy, and your presence. Because the most powerful message you can send to someone who does not value you is not anger. It is indifference. Real indifference. Not performed indifference where you are secretly watching to see if they noticed. The indifference that comes from having genuinely decided that this person is no longer relevant to the direction of your life. But if the answer is yes, if this is someone who matters, a colleague, a partner, a person in your inner circle, then the reset is necessary. And it begins not with a conversation, but with a decision. The decision that you are no longer available to be treated this way. Not as a feeling, as a fact. A fact that you will enforce, quietly, consistently, and without the need for anyone to agree with you about whether you deserve it. You know you deserve it. That is enough. Let me bring this back to where we started. Someone disrespected you, and you had a choice. You still have that choice. You can explode and prove to everyone watching that the attack landed. You can swallow it and teach the other person that there are no consequences for how they treat you. Or you can do what Machiavelli would do. Slow down. Notice without reacting. Name it if it needs naming in the language of observation, not the language of wound. Decide on the consequence without announcing it, and then deliver it with the quiet certainty of someone who knows exactly who they are and exactly what they will and will not accept. Because here is the truth that sits underneath everything we have talked about today. Respect is not something people give you. It is something they learn to give you. They learn it through the consistency of your standards, through the reliability of your consequences, through the absolute certainty that you know who you are and that knowledge does not require their confirmation. Machiavelli was not a man who was widely respected in his lifetime. He was ignored, dismissed, tortured, and exiled by people who had the power to do all of those things. And he did not beg for their respect. He did not explode at their dismissal. He did not swallow his truth to make them comfortable. He picked up his pen. He wrote the most honest document about power that had ever been produced. And centuries later, the names of the people who disrespected him are forgotten. And his is not. That is the ultimate Machiavellian response to disrespect. Not a clever line, not a devastating comeback, not a perfectly timed silence, a life so undeniably built on the foundation of your own worth that the people who tried to diminish you become irrelevant, not by your effort, but by their own smallness. If this video gave you something you needed, if something we covered named a moment you have been carrying, or gave you clarity on something you already felt but couldn't articulate, then do 3 things. First, decide right now what standard you are going to hold. Not tomorrow, not after the next time it happens. Now, before the feeling fades and the comfortable inertia pulls you back to where you were. Second, hit the like button, not as a favor to me,
because it tells the algorithm that this kind of content is worth putting in front of someone who needs it right now, the way you needed it when this video started. And third, subscribe, because this is not the only conversation like this that we are going to have. There is more coming. More of what Machiavelli actually understood about the dynamics between people that the world forgot to teach you. And the notification bell, turn it on, because the person who shows up early, who doesn't wait to be told where to look, who moves toward the things that sharpen them before the crowd finds them, that person has already understood the most important lesson in this entire video. They know their own worth, and they don't wait for anyone else to confirm it.